Othello might be Shakespeare's most tragic tragedy. In it, a strong and charismatic man, respected by everybody, marries a brave and virtuous woman, equally beloved by everybody. Their marriage happens against her father's wishes, but they overcome that obstacle only to run into a villain named Iago, one of the most interesting and influential characters in the history of English literature. It is a frustrating play to read or watch. But we're going to do it anyway. This is going to be a 7-video series that goes through this play act by act and introduce you to some academic conversations that have been ongoing since the time that the play was first performed in 1603. This is a play that has been popular since that first performance and has maintained that popularity for over 400 years. My hope is that these videos will help unlock some of the themes of this play and give you the vocabulary to engage with the big ideas contained within it and help you perhaps find some wisdom in it. Maybe they will give you something clever to say in class or help you write a paper or whatever, maybe sound interesting at a dinner party. This first video is going to give you some background information and historical context and introduce you to some of the larger themes that will be discussed throughout the series. And if this sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing to be notified when future videos and future seasons are published. And with that out of the way, let's start up this season on Othello. So Shakespeare drew inspiration for Othello from an Italian source. The characters and general outline come from a mid-16th century Italian novella by Giovanni Battista Giraldi. He was nicknamed Cinthio. It includes an unnamed Moor who marries a wealthy woman named Desdemona and who works with a villainous ensign who inspires the Moor to jealousy with tragic consequences. All these pieces remain the same in Shakespeare's version, but as usual, Shakespeare adds complexity and nuance to the whole situation. The same Italian author, by the way, wrote the story that inspired Measure for Measure. I've got videos about that one. The story of Shakespeare's Othello takes place in 2 distinct locations, Venice and Cyprus. Venice, for an early modern audience, is a very exciting place. It is a city with a reputation for commerce and multiculturalism. Within the city of Venice, people from Europe engage in trade with people from North Africa and the Ottoman Empire and everywhere else, really. It's a place where one could hear different languages being spoken and smell spices from all over the world. Because of its location and its position in an increasingly globalizing economy, Venice is always involved in tensions between Europe and the Ottoman Empire. It's a place that requires the presence of foreign merchants, but it also fears the influence of foreign militaries at disrupting that trade that Venice depends upon. It needs the presence of those born outside of Venice, but it's also cautious of people born from outside Venice. The other location, Cyprus, is interesting for other reasons. Venice ruled the island of Cyprus since the end of the 1400s. An early plotline in Othello will revolve around Venice needing to protect its position on that island and the Christian population within Cyprus from the Turkish Ottoman Empire. In order to do this, the Duke of Venice will send Othello to protect the island. This will be outlined in Act 1. The reason I bring this up is because if we were seeing this play performed in 1603, we would all be very aware of the fact that Venice lost the island of Cyprus to the Ottomans during the Fourth Venetian War in the early 1570s. The Ottomans conquered the island and held it all the way until 1878. So the action of Shakespeare's play must take place sometime in the late 1560s, before the Ottomans drive Venice off the island of Cyprus. So for Shakespeare's entire life, including the writing and performing of Othello, the Ottoman Empire already conquered Cyprus. Anyone watching Othello in the 17th century watches it knowing that Venice will not be successful in defending that island. That's subtext for the whole tragedy we witness on stage. We watch knowing that the tragedy of Othello is linked with, in the eyes of Christian Europe, the tragedy of Cyprus. The tragedy of Othello is primarily a domestic tragedy about a husband and wife. But there is a historical subtext that implies that domestic tragedies can have global consequences. Maybe Othello could have protected Cyprus had the events outlined in this play not ruined him. So that's the importance of the setting. I now want to turn to the importance of structure. The play's structure is influenced by the form of a medieval morality play. So it's worth time just to quickly explain what a medieval morality play is. It's a short play, often performed by ordinary people, built around a simple concept. a protagonist who represents a generic human. This character is sometimes even named something like Everyman. And this everyman is surrounded by a bunch of characters who represent vices and virtues. The virtues try to help every man into heaven, while the vices try to tempt him towards sin. So there could be characters named Friendship or Charity, but also a character named Sloth or Lust. Everyone on stage fights for influence over the everyman character's soul, and typically the everyman is tempted, falls, and is then redeemed. That's a medieval morality play. Because Shakespeare's audience would recognize this narrative archetype, it might be interesting to point out some of the similarities here. It's very easy to read this play as a fight for Othello's soul. On one side, you have the angel, his wife, Desdemona, pulling him toward a supportive marriage, and on the other side, you have a devil, Iago, tempting him toward wrath and jealousy. There are virtues and vices competing for Othello's soul. And it should be noted that the character representing sin in these medieval morality plays would be charismatic and often talk to the audience directly, just as Iago will in this play. But, of course, nothing is ever simple in Shakespeare. He will take those expectations that his audience has and he'll subvert them or add nuance in a bunch of clever ways. So keep all of that in the back of your head as you read. So over the next couple weeks, I'm going to publish one video per act. Each video is going to focus on a specific topic or theme Shakespeare explores throughout the play. The first video will focus on Act 1 and specifically the role storytelling plays, the way archetypes can be used to influence a reader's experience, those angels and devils, for example. That video on Act 1 will also focus on the ways characters try to tell their own stories. Some characters get to speak for themselves and control their own story, while others have stories told about them. The ability to tell and control one's own story allows a character to control the way that they are perceived in the world. Othello and Iago are both exceptional storytellers, and by telling stories, they both try to bend reality to fit their individual narratives. In Act 2, we're going to focus on reputations. Iago has a reputation for honesty, Othello for bravery, Desdemona for virtue, and Cassio for being a big ol' flirt. Reputations impact the way these characters are treated, and reputations are also difficult to move on from, good or bad. In that video, we're going to talk about the importance of reputation within the play and the way the characters link their reputation on Earth to the fate of their soul in the afterlife. In Act 3, we're going to focus on how the play deals with vision and sight. Much will be made of the way the title character looks, and much will be made about the way certain actions appear to those who witness them. This play has an absurd amount of references to eyes looking and seeing. Sight is understood to be the best kind of proof within the logic of this play, so we're going to dig in and see what that's all about. In Act 4, we're going to focus on the role gender plays in Othello by looking specifically at masculinity and how the characters in this play understand manhood and the impact of those expectations on the individual characters. And in Act 5, we're going to focus on silence. Some characters are permitted to speak and some aren't. In the final act of the play, some characters will become silent forever, either through their own choice or through their death, or both. And once we've finished reading the entire play, I will produce one final video that will discuss the role of colorism and race through the entire play, and the perceptions and understandings of race in England during Shakespeare's life. So please subscribe to be notified when those videos are published, and for deep dives into other plays, thank you for watching.